I think people like to hear that we had normal jobs once upon a time.
Oh yeah.
It's like, yes, we had a shit car, we had normal jobs, we had whatever, we eat like a normal person.
Well, it's funny, you know, I've heard these, like, I've seen people like come to me or like say things about me. It's like, oh, the reason Misha's like famous, he's got a rich dad or something. His dad bought him his Lamborghini, his dad bought him all this stuff. Like, that's the funniest thing in the world, first of all. Like, I couldn't imagine my dad buying anyone. My dad thinks I'm an idiot for like spending the money. My dad's an economist, you know?
Right.
He's so tight with money.
Really?
He's just like, why didn't you invest that? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, and I always like, I will buy a car if I can talk to my dad and convince him that it's not the worst idea in the world. Like, that's the only way he's involved with my car buying stuff is like if I could get him to be like, well, I think it's a terrible idea, but you know what? It looks like you can afford it, so whatever, you know?
So he hates it, right?
He would, the idea of my dad buying me a car at all, which he would never do, but a Lamborghini or something like that is the craziest thing in the world. Like, it's just so backwards. But there are people who think like, you know, I'm like a rich kid or whatever, and I'm like, man, it's funny because like, I was in college, right? And I was wasting my time and I was going like learning philosophy, and I just went there because you're supposed to, right? It's the first time that you go to school and you don't have to go to school, but no one really like tells you that. I wish someone would have been like, get a job, go work a job for a year, figure out what you want to do. And if what you want to do involves school, then go to school, you know? So I dropped out and I was so miserable. And my parents were like, well, you're not using this as an excuse to be lazy. They're like, we'll rent you a room in our house and we'll give you a good rate for where you live.
Your dad rents you your own place to live in? In the house?
No. I got to rent a room in their house. So I lived with my parents.
Okay.
They're like, we'll allow you to live here for this amount. I mean, it was pretty cheap rent. It was like $400 or $500 a month. But they're like, we'll allow you to do that, but you have to hold down a full-time job. If you don't hold down a full-time job, we kick you out, you know? And they're like, $500 is a great rate for Bethesda, Maryland. You know, you won't find a better deal. So like... So and it was, and they're like, and in your free time you can do whatever you want. If you want to do music in your free time, then you do it. But you know, you're not using this as an excuse to be lazy. I worked at Radio Shack. It was walking distance from my parents' place, so I didn't need a car. You know, and they had a car that if they weren't using it, I could borrow it for stuff. So if you know, I need to like bring like equipment to like the where I was practicing, or we practiced at their place. I lived in the basement, so I could practice there, but. There was ever anything I needed to bring gear, I could borrow their car for that. But like, I didn't have a car. I walked to work, so I didn't really have a lot of expenses. When you live at home, like my mom cooked for me, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, it was like, and I basically took that time to like, I was like, I'm gonna focus on music. I didn't have a girlfriend or anything. Like I swore off all that shit. I was like, I'm just gonna work and do music, and it was like I was so happy. I loved that time. And that's just kind of what I thought was going to happen forever. I was like, maybe like Periphery will do like Weekend Warrior shows. It'd be cool if we could do a van tour someday. Mm-hmm. That's about as far as I planned ahead for that. The rest was like all accident and luck, you know? And I liked it because music was a hobby. It was like I was doing my job, and I liked working at Radio Shack. It was sales. I was good at it, you know? Like it's like if you learn the products, if you learn your stuff, you'll sell more, you know? That's all you have to do is just not about convincing people to buy stuff. It's just about educating them. They're like, oh, well, this actually does that. Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. I want to buy that, you know? And it was, I found it came pretty naturally to me. And I could work like 4 days a week and make the same amount of money and have more time to do music. So, you know, the thing my parents always gave me is like you work for the things that you want, you know? Mm-hmm. You're not going to get handouts. I mean, they could have given me a handout at that point, you know? They could have not charged me for rent or, you know, whatever, but they were just like, no, like in life you have to pay for things. Like you're not getting a handout. This is not your chance to be lazy. And I think that's way more valuable than like my parents buying me anything or coming from a rich family or anything. And when we were growing up, we were kind of, we weren't poor, but we were house poor because my parents valued education above everything else. So they moved to a neighborhood they couldn't afford because, you know, over here, that'll determine what school system. So they moved into a neighborhood they couldn't afford because it was in like the best school system, best public school system for the area. So, you know, we had to have a lodge. We usually had people like renting a room in the house. And like, you know, I remember when I was growing up thinking like you'd had to be a millionaire to like shop at the grocery store without coupons or like buying stuff on. To this day, I have guilt about going to the grocery store and buying stuff that isn't on sale. you know? Like if it's like the name brand thing, it's twice the price, like $4 instead of $2. I'm like, I don't know if I should.
Hey, you know what? I'm also from that. I have that mentality because
Yeah.
my parents were so poor when they grew up. So it's like every time I go to the supermarket,
Right.
you go to the section where the things are going to expire the next day, right?
Yeah, the
You just go,
clearance.
"Well, it's way cheaper."
Dude, I love the clearance. It's like 50% off. And like I've had arguments with like girlfriends or whatever. Like, you can afford it. I'm like, yeah, but why would I pay $4 when I could pay $2? It's like this guilt. I talked to my therapist about it because I'm like, I recognize this is not healthy. Like, you know, you can't have the cars that I do and the lifestyle I do and care about those things. But you know, that's how I was raised. So like, you know, and I think like later on, my parents, you know, made more money and they have a good life now. But like, it is kind of funny, like getting this rich kid badge, which, you know, if I would be fine. I wouldn't care. Like, you need every bit of help you can get. But I actually think what they gave me was way more valuable, which is like, you work for what you want. You know, you really, it's important to work for what you want. And I think even if my parents had the means to give me a free ride, they never ever would have. I was like one of the few kids. I went to a rich kid's school. I was one of the few kids who didn't get a car when he was 16. Like, you want a car, get your own. Like, go save up and buy your own. And the first good guitar I bought was a Les Paul off my friend. He bought it it was a Gary Moore edition. He bought it for $2,000. He's like, I'll sell it to you for $1,000. I was like, oh my God, that's an insane deal. So I told my parents, I was like, look, like, I really want it. They're like, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll loan you $1,000. You're gonna work all summer. And I scooped ice cream at Häagen-Dazs for like a summer, you know, whole summer to pay it off. They're like, if you don't pay us back, we're selling this fucking guitar. And they wouldn't have been like, oh well, you know. I think the one situation is if I had worked my ass off and not made enough, you know, but they saw I like went every day and I wasn't lazy, then maybe. Like, they wanted me to make the effort, but like if I'd like done it and then not showed up and be like, they'll just keep it, they would have sold that shit so fucking fast. Like, it would have been gone. And I went to them. I was like, look, it's a really good deal. Like, I would have to pay $2,000 for this, or $1,500 on the used market. $1,000 a no-brainer. They're like, okay, we'll help you out. We'll help you get the good deal, but you're working for this, you know. So
yeah, crazy. I remember when my parents bought me a Squire.
Yeah,
it was like £200.
Yeah,
it's like 150, 200. It's so much money to buy a guitar. It was like insane. I couldn't believe my parents have got me that guitar.
Right.
I wish I still had it, but I had to trade that in. I had to trade that to get my next guitar. There's no way I could afford the next guitar, which was like, I think it was £250. It was like, whoa, that is just so expensive.
Yeah, I remember looking through the catalogs back then, looking at like the Ibanez's for like $600. It's like,
never, right? No way in hell you're ever going to get one of those.
$600 Ibanez. Now, I don't even think you can get... These are like for Japanese Ibanez's, by the way, if you can imagine that. This is before the whole prestige thing, I think. But like, it was like they were all just Japanese. I was like, oh my God, man, they look so cool. They're all pointy and everything. It's like, someday, man. Someday I'll have $600 to spend on a guitar. So, yeah. It's, it's interesting how things went from that to where they are now. It's like, I feel like so much of it is luck, which is another thing people hate hearing. They don't like hearing that it was luck. They want to be like, oh, you just believed really, really hard. You just wanted it so bad. It's like, everybody wants it. Everyone believes. It's luck and like making the most of these situations. When you get lucky, knowing how not to squander the situation, how to make the most of that, because you'll see that as well. People get lucky and then they kind of just
blow it away, right? If you didn't have to work for it in the first place, you just blow it away. You don't think about it.
And that's why I always say I'm so much more grateful for what my parents taught me, which is, you know, that you have to work for things. You have to value these things. You have to understand the value of a dollar. And because I was raised that way, I thought everyone did. But then I realized, you know, I'd date some girls and just see them just like throw money away. I'm just like dying. I was like, oh, how do you sleep at night? You know, like, I don't understand. They're like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I'm just like, Jesus. I always used to be like fights with some girlfriends. Like, I just don't understand how you spend money the way that you do.
So do you feel, I mean, I want to ask you because, look, you didn't have a car. I drove garbage car, which is like less than $1,000 for years, right? You know, never fixed them, didn't even change oil to save money. And now we both have nice cars, right? Do you feel kind of weird sometimes driving these cars?
Yes.
Because I feel weird. I feel with getting valet. Sometimes you have to do valets.
Yeah.
I don't feel like someone should be parking my car. I can do it.
That's a whole other thing too, because if they damage it, they have no liability, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm always nervous, but yeah, I do feel absolutely.
Driving nice car. Sometimes people think the wrong thing about you is that you must be an asshole.
That's one of those things. It's like I've started to become more open about my car stuff, not to show it off, but because it's something I embrace. It's something I want, and honestly, it's been one of the best moves I've ever made because it's an investment in that world. Like I want to be in the car world, and like one of my goals moving forward is like I'd love to learn how to race and be a gentleman driver someday or something like that, you know? So it's a whole world I'm investing in. It's why I spend so much time sim racing and everything. So I want to go in, and I've created so many opportunities for myself by being open about it and by people knowing. But there's always people who like misconstrue, and they're like, oh, he's just trying to flex, or he's just trying to show off. And you know, because like one of my cars is a Lamborghini, like that, a lot of people who get a Lamborghini as a flex car. But mine specifically, the Performante, is for people who know about cars. It's a driver's car. Like that car can corner in a way that most cars can't. And that's why I got it. And if I could have gotten an Audi, or if I could have gotten a Toyota that corners like that, I would, you know? So I don't care about brands. I don't care about any of that stuff. But I care about experience, and I care about, the driving experience. But yeah, it's like, sometimes I won't go somewhere in that car because I'm like, this just sends the wrong... If you don't know me personally, it sends the wrong message.
Yeah,
you know?
it's that's why a lot of time I drive the Prius.
Yeah.
Even to gigs.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know,
sends a better message, right?
Yeah, people get the wrong ideas.
Because so I'm very strategic sometimes about like where I'll show up with what, because you don't want to have that conversation. My friends and all that, and anyone who's a car guy will know. They'll know the deal. Any car guy, anyone who knows the difference between a Huracan and a Huracan Performante will understand why I went for the Performante. Mm-hmm. But most people, or a lot of people who just want the flex, save the money and get the regular Huracan.
Yeah, you just want to show off.
You want to show off.
You don't care about it.
You don't need to spend the extra money.
Yeah.
But